Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, a place to find connection and a sense of belonging, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about sensitivity and the richness that it adds, the strengths we have because of our sensitivity, and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there, to the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers. Welcome. This is a really interesting episode with Brian Zirngible, who's a therapist, but he's also a musician and he works with men and artists who are creative. And in this episode, we talk about the need for HSPs to be in groups and how our perceptions of we think of groups as being draining and not getting our needs met, and how that really can be very different when we're in the right type of group. Brian talks about the terms that he was called around his sensitivity being weak or weird, what he was told around his sensitivity, and how he kind of worked with that. We talk about men having a hard time feeling, and it's the reasons why men tend to not show up in therapy and what are the reasons that they do show up in therapy. This episode is not about men being in therapy, but because I get so few men on the podcast and especially therapists, I really wanted to explore that a little bit more. But we do talk about creativity. One of the things that I love that Brian talks about is slowing down and taking a breath to really help with when we have a strong emotional response to something, that we can kind of slow the process down. One of the things that I didn't get to talk about, and after we stopped recording, I realized I probably should have talked about it. Brian is a performing musician, and I asked, how is that for you being a highly sensitive person? Because it's loud, it's noisy. And he says he wears earplugs when he performs. He stands next to the drums, and if he wants to continue having any hearing, he does play the trombone, so he can't wear his earplugs when he plays the trombone, but he also has a plan for when he leaves stage. He either goes into the bathroom if they have a green room. He plans for some downtime. So as a highly sensitive person, these are things that he's sensitive to, and he's found ways to do what he loves and to share his gift with the world and still manage and take care of himself. His overreaching message is, you are not alone. He really wants people to get that just because we're highly sensitive does not mean that we're the only ones that are struggling with things. So let me tell you a little bit about Brian. Brian Zirngible is a licensed marriage and family therapist in Burnsville, Minnesota. His specialties and passions are supporting highly sensitive men, musicians, performing artists to find more balance, boundaries in their lives. Brian's a performing artist and musician himself. He plays in different musical projects. He practices daily meditation, mindfulness. He's a husband to a super supportive and amazing wife. He's also father to a fur baby. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, you can really help me out by sharing this podcast with other people. If you post on social media, if you need any cover art, if you want to share any of the episodes that I share, shoot me an email at unapologeticallysensitive@gmail.com. I'm happy to share a write-up with you. I do graphics for Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook and Twitter. So if I can help you out in sharing things, I really just want to get the message out about the amazing gifts that we have to offer as highly sensitive people. And now, on to the show. Hey, Brian, welcome.
Hi, Patricia. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. It's a gray, dreary day here in Burnsville, Minnesota. I've got my happy light on, and I'm feeling okay today.
That sounds great. Actually, I want to back up. If we're really going to be honest, before we started recording, the two of us had a conversation about, and what I shared is, I tend to be kind of not plugged in before I start an interview. So I've started a bunch of interviews saying I'm depleted. And once I start engaging, I get really tuned in and plugged in. And we kind of had this talk about my anecdotal thought about HSPs is I don't think that we always wake up thinking about the best possible outcome. And once we kind of show up and get plugged in, we seem to do really well. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I've been noticing that too. In fact, I came from a breakfast meeting with a great therapist friend, but I woke up just feeling tired and exhausted. And we're having housework done in our house too, so that's an extra dynamic that is adding to my exhaustion. and I just wanted to stay in bed because it's dark and dreary. But I did get up and go. And once I got there and we started talking, I felt just way better. I've been noticing that kind of process and dynamic too within myself.
Yeah, I have a feeling, and again, this is anecdotal, I'm not a researcher. I think that because we're so aware of what we're thinking and feeling and the way that we're wired, I know for many years I would really attach danger or worry to how I was feeling, or if something was unresolved and I was thinking about it. And the more I've learned about the trait of being an HSP and just knowing like this is how I show up in the world. And if I wake up feeling restless or having feelings that don't feel like they're super positive, I get curious and check in with them. And then I really work on trying to make a choice about how is my life going? Are things really as dangerous or terrible as I think? And then really reframing. And I'm wondering if that's not where people that don't know that they're HSPs, they don't know about the trait, there's wounding, if that is where some of the challenges come around being an HSP, because we feel things and we think it must be the truth and we're stuck in that feeling state. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think I could agree more. So I took the Hsp Self Test, and I cannot remember exactly where I first found out about Elaine Aron and the Hsp book and the website, but I took the exam, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this label. I mean, I know we shouldn't label things, but once it was labeled for me and I understood, oh my gosh, these traits are exactly how I'm feeling, I felt way more relaxed and comfortable with who I was. Because before it was exactly as you said, just this feeling of tension and unresolved stuff. And I didn't know what it was. I knew I was sensitive, but I don't know. All the resources I've been finding and reading have been just so helpful with labeling of the thing that I'm feeling. It's like naming it. The naming of it has been really helpful.
Yeah, I think there's so much power. And I think because we tend to have gotten negative messages about how we show up in the world when we don't know we're highly sensitive, we're only 15 to 20% of the population. And then we have these really intense feeling states and thinking states. And the part of us that is always observing what we're saying and what we're doing, it's like having it can be someone that's very critical. And just naming what's going on really can break the shame and change the energy around it. I mean, that's been one of the most unexpected things for me about this last almost year of podcasting, because this has been the focus of what I'm doing. It's bringing up so much awareness and all the little things that go on in my daily life. And often I'll be talking with a friend and they'll go like, you might want to talk about that on the podcast. I'm like, oh, so bringing that awareness and curiosity and the lack of judgment when I'm able to, I think can be really transformational. What's your experience been?
The lack of judgment piece has been pretty critical for my own self-care and for my work with HSP men specifically, to name the feeling or the thoughts we're having and to be okay with it and not judge it, but witness it and see it and name it, and having the ability to let it go and to be okay with it has truly been monumental for my own personal life and for the work that I do with the guys that I work with too. So I'm good. And
even if I'm in judgment, to own that I'm in judgment, like I'm having a hard time letting this go, or I'm feeling resistant, or I don't want to, or my son and I have been going to the gym, and something happened this last weekend where I felt like I was slipping over to what I call the dark side, which is probably not great in terms of non-judgmental language. And I just did not want to go on Monday night. And I told him, like, I'm in this place of like, you're not the boss of me. You can't make me. Not that he was trying to, but just that real sense of resistance. And he was so cute. He's 19. He's like, you'll feel better if you go. I'm like, I know, but I'm not going. And you know what? The next day, something shifted. I can't tell you what it was, but this was like a feeling of heaviness, darkness, and that fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to go into this dark place and I'm not going to be coming out for a couple months because I've been incredibly extroverted and doing all kinds of things that I don't normally do for months. And I kind of expected a week or two and then I have the rubber band effect and kind of snap back in. And I think that this is just a toll of really extroverting for so long and then having to pull in.
Yeah. That sounds familiar and exhausting.
Yeah, but I think again, when we can talk about it, and I spent, the few days that I was in it talking about, I'm feeling really afraid, like I'm having concerns that this is going to turn into something that's, I'm going to be kind of gone missing for a couple of months. And I knew what I needed to do was to keep connecting and talk about it. And the people that I'm close to, I'm really fortunate that they don't try and get me out of it, but it created that sense of connection so that whatever that, I don't know what word to use, the shame, the negativity, that fear of spiraling, kind of kept me grounded, going like, I'm a little concerned about what's going on with me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you are surrounded by people that get you and understand and are there to support you. I think we all need that. And as an HSP, because it's so rare, people around us often don't know what the heck is going on with us when we're in that place of, uncertainty and darker feelings or exhausted. It can be a combination of stuff too, but it's nice to have that support from, our loving, caring community.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And then we'll kind of go back and start the way that I normally do. We're breaking rules today. We're being spontaneous. Yeah.
Nice.
What I'm finding.
I'm in.
Go ahead.
I'm in. Let's break all the rules.
Let's break all the rules.
Can I swear and curse on your podcast now? No. Still not a rule.
And it's so disingenuous with how I show up in the world because I love swearing. And if I knew then what I knew now, I may have done it differently. I don't know. We're going to keep it G-rated.
Yep. I gotcha.
Once we stop recording, if you save it up, write it down, you can share it all with me.
Nice.
What I'm finding, though, is I'm running 3 online HSP courses right now. And what I've heard in almost every one of the groups is people have this idea of like a group is going to be like one more thing to do, one more thing that's draining, one more thing that's going to take from me. And what I hear people saying is, it is so nice to be in a group where I can just show up and be exactly who I am. And in all 3 groups that I met with this week, I said, can you imagine yourself being in a group with 6 other people? What comes up for you? And everybody said like, no way. And I said, you know what? We've been in a group of 6 people for 4 weeks now. And how's it been? Well, this is different. And really trying to bring the fact home that when we are in environments that really support how we are and who we are with people that get us, we don't have to have that sense of overwhelm and overstimulation. And I'm not saying that being in an online course is the same as socializing with 6 other people, but it's so far out of our experience of being in environments where we can just be exactly who we are and it fills us up. It's such a different narrative of how most HSPs feel on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the key is without judgment.
Right.
So, just feeling, like you're in a cozy group of like-minded people, I guess, or folks who know. Well, it's like group therapy. We're here for a specific reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's awesome.
Well, that it's okay to show up and be how you are. You don't have to put on any airs. If you're comfortable being vulnerable and letting people see you, you can. There are no rules. You can't do it wrong. There are no expectations. And we spend so much of our time really figuring out what we're supposed to be doing to fit with everybody else in the world, that to have a place where you can show up and just relax and be who you are. Just people don't get enough of that. And I really think that part of becoming an empowered and educated HSP means learning about the trait, but also being around other people that really can support us in showing up the way that we just are in the world. Yeah.
Now, with these online communities, there's rules, but can you swear?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. You want to come?
There are no rules, and you can swear.
There are no rules, and you can. The only rule is to be kind and considerate. That is the only rule. Yeah. So I already know that you identify as an HSP. Thank you.
Yes.
Do you know when you found out you were an HSP?
Well, just a heads up, I just took the self-exam right before we got online here together, and I scored, again, 26 out of 27. So
I thought you knew much, but you've known you were an HSP before this, haven't you, or no?
Yes, within the last year or so.
Yeah.
But as preparation for this interview, I took the self-exam one more time, and it showed up the same. So I'm consistently HSP. So I took the exam first about like within the last year, maybe 8-10 months ago. But I always knew I was different and sensitive, and I don't know, with animals and other people's feelings and all of the the 27 questions on the self exam. Yeah, that was me when I was a kid too.
Right.
So,
and if you're a first-time listener, if you go to hsperson.com, there's a self-test. Dr. Elaine Aron is the person who coined the trait highly sensitive person. It's a trait that's been around for a while, but she did research and coined the trait. There's a self-test there. If you suspect you're highly sensitive and you take it and you don't score in the range, she suggests to take the child version of the quiz and think back to when you were a kid and what you remember hearing about yourself. Because as Brian and I are going to talk about, especially with men, sensitivity is not always valued and cultivated. And so for me, I had to bury all those traits. And if I would have taken the test in my 20s and 30s, I probably would not have tested as a highly sensitive person. That's my guess. I don't know. Brian, what do you think about the term highly sensitive person?
Well, I think I like it because it names what I am and what we as HSPs feel, that sensitivity. And to answer your next question, I don't know if there's another name for it or if I would name it something else or differently. I think it's really fitting of the personality trait. So I'm cool with it right now.
Okay. I think I'd change it.
Yeah.
Only because the more interviews that I do, I've been on quite a number of podcasts, and really the whole connotation around sensitivity is people think of people that are extremely emotional and cannot manage their emotions and think of sensitivity as being really fragile. And it's about, being a deep thinker and having empathy and noticing things that other people don't and being able to problem solve, and all of those things is just not captured by the name sensitivity. And this is no disrespect to Dr. Aron. The work that she's done, I think, has been phenomenal. And we often don't know in the moment of how something's going to impact us in the future. But I think that for the people that don't understand what it is and they hear sensitivity, it just brings up a very, very narrow, misconstrued aspect that neglects all of the strengths that we have.
She probably had 30 seconds to come up with a name before she had to documented on a paper or a research paper or a television interview or something. So I don't know the story behind it, but Patricia, what would you change it to? Do you have ideas or thoughts?
Gosh, I'm really borrowing from what guests have said. I love highly perceptive, highly responsive, highly attuned, noticing the textures of life. I think something that really cues in more to how perceptive we are and how we're such great problem solvers and troubleshooters. I think those are some of our greatest strengths.
I agree. And I would like it to be some kind of snappy acronym, like maybe OPP. Who's down with OPP? Yeah, you know me. Sorry, 90s hip hop reference. Outstanding personality person. I don't know. OPP. Yeah.
And for people that are new to the podcast or have not heard about the highly sensitive person, the more research-based trait is sensory processing sensitivity. But again, we're talking about sensitivity, and I think that it's about being sensitive to so many things in our culture. Just if there's a TED Talk and if you Google sensitivity, you get sore toes and things like that. And it's not about being perceptive and intuitive and in tune. So
is that why my toes are tingling right now? My gosh. I got to go get that checked out.
It could be.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm really curious because I've not been able to get as many men on the podcast to be able to talk about their experience with being sensitive. So I would love to hear a little bit about what was it like for you growing up with your sensitivity, and was your supportive? What kind of messages did you get?
I think my family understands and understood me. And, I think both of my parents and my brother have sensitivity traits as well. Maybe not. Well, I don't know. I've never I've never given them the self-exam before. But I know that, I get part of my sensitivity from them and genetics and, nature and nurture, how I was brought up. But as far as school and neighborhood kids and goofing around and sports and athletics and being a guy, that was pretty challenging. And I remember having to fake things so that I wouldn't cry or feel bad, either playing with the neighborhood kids or out on the sports field or something. But I would just have to hide certain actions or feelings and emotions to fake it till you make it, be a tough guy, that whole thing. Because if you show weakness, then you're weird and a loser and XYZ, name all the bullying names that are called kids nowadays. I remember that being a specific challenge, but my family was pretty supportive of me and my sensitivities without even knowing what it was really, or, the acronym HSP.
My guess is because your family understood and embraced it, probably a pretty good resilience factor for you, at least getting that support at home.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for the most part, they would understand if I was feeling sad or I don't know. I don't remember wanting to talk about it either when I was a kid and being a guy. We didn't want to talk about stuff. So right. Just the hiding and the shame and embarrassment of those feelings was there too. But I remember going to them if I had to talk about something, and they were pretty okay with it and supportive and understanding. So I was pretty lucky in that regard with my family and my parents.
Yeah. So if you're a therapist, and if you've really only discovered you're an HSP within the last year or so, did you intuitively kind of market towards men that tended to be more on the sensitive side? I know you do a lot of work with creativity, because I think that often we intuitively draw people, our ideal clients tend to be versions of ourselves. Did you find that happening?
Yeah. I do joke to people that I am my own ideal client.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty true across the board for us. But yeah, once I discovered and started learning about myself and the book and all the resources that are out there, I might have, changed what I have on my website, including the HSP person and men specifically who have a hard time with feelings and emotions and within relationships and in the music business. Yeah, I did kind of focus and pinpoint my attention on those folks that are seeking support and may or may not know what is happening or what they're going through or what HSP is. And I know I showed you the book that I have here in my office coffee table. I will often just leave it out if I'm meeting someone for the first time. And I've since included in my intake paperwork, are you a highly sensitive person? And I put a few clarifying questions on there too. And I don't know, just to flesh out and learn more about folks that are coming in with sensitivities.
And the book that Brian's referring to is The Highly Sensitive Person by Dr. Elaine Aron. I'm curious, since I don't tend to work with, it's funny, since I started doing private practice, I have fewer male clients, which I love working with men. And when I wasn't doing private practice and was getting referrals from an agency, my caseload was 50-50, and I really enjoy working with men. What are some of the common reasons that men seek out therapy? Because my guess is it's not about their sensitivity and not about their feelings. Is that accurate?
So typically men do not seek out therapy support from me or in general, I have found, and it is through their partner, their bandmate, their spouse, their acting partner. Hey, you might want to go talk to Brian. He's an artist. He gets it. And then through that, they'll give me a call. We do a phone consult to check things out. Sometimes men will reach out and say, hey, I heard you work with artists and highly sensitive people. I think I might be highly sensitive. What do you know about that? And then we have a conversation about it. 9 out of 10 times it is that. And so they automatically feel welcome and comfortable and want to come on in and meet for a initial session. And it's always great.
My guess is too, because of the creativity and the artist aspect of it, it destigmatizes going to therapy for therapy. Like, I'm going to go talk about my creativity, or I'm an artist and I'm feeling stuck. So I would imagine it creates a little bit more of an opening for men to seek help. Is that accurate?
I would hope so. And I think so. Because if they are ashamed, or, there's stigma around it, we can always, cover it up or mask it and cloak it with, I'm going to get unstuck for my creativity. And we do that. We do that work in here. It may not look or sound like that work. It's so fascinating how unique and different everyone is, and what they come in with and what they think they need versus what they know they need but aren't ready yet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It totally does. And I would imagine that it's working with men. I think it would be even harder to be able to speak to what they may be experiencing and what you have to offer that would draw them in to come seek help, just because of it. It's hard being a male needing help. It's hard being a sensitive male needing help. There's such a stigma around mental health.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will share personal disclosure stuff about my sensitivities and being an artist and musician, and that typically will just open the door to more conversation about what the men come in for, and why they're there, and how hard it is, and the support that they're needing, maybe if they're not getting it from anywhere else. So yeah, my guys.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest pressures that you find that men have that make it challenging for them to kind of allow themselves to be okay with their traits?
Well, if they're in a partnership or a marriage where their partner doesn't know or understand or realize or agree with the HSP personality traits, that's always a challenge. And I think that's one of my missions in life. And my calling is to help folks get a bit more educated on the trait and how we operate and what it's like, why why we can act or feel different than other people. And that's partly why I will have the book out on my coffee table, just for a visual, an education piece.
Mm-hmm. Brian, you asked me to recap my question. We had a long discussion that we had to cut out because I let you swear, and we both swore in between because I can't really remember what my question was. So we're just going to move a little bit forward. When you have a man come in and you're working on creativity, how does it come up, and how do you help them work with getting in touch with their feelings, their sensitivity, and being okay with it?
I guess typically creative men will come in here, but not so much for creativity. There's something going on in their relationship at home with their partner, and there's either an ultimatum, hey, you go to therapy or we're done, or there's substance abuse and use too in the creative arts, as we all know. So that might be part of the reason why they're coming in, or just I guess depression, anxiety will help them get stuck with their music or their acting, so they'll come in to feel more unstuck. But I don't know. I think when they know, like most creative men will come in here knowing that I myself am an artist, and I'm in 3 different music projects, and I don't know. I've been in the Twin Cities for almost over 25 years, and I've just earned a reputation as an artist, a musician, a therapist who is not stuffy and traditional and will kind of think outside the box. I am not your typical psychotherapist. I've got record sleeve albums up on my wall, and I listen to music in my office here, and I've got artsy creative stuff going on all the time. So I think that eases the tension a bit for men to come in to talk with someone. And I will always claim that I do not know everything. I'm not an expert. I'm not even an expert in my own life, let alone somebody else's. So I don't claim that title of I'm an expert HSP male mind whisperer. I mess up and make mistakes too, like I almost did right there. But I don't know, just self-disclosure and not knowing and just being curious and being creative, I think draws most men into my office.
And my guess is that your authenticity is what is really attractive. And what my experience and what I hear you saying is, with HSPs, we felt like we're in the minority for so long. We feel like there's something wrong with us. We're the disruptors. We're the black sheep. We're the truth tellers. And having years and years of therapy, I kept thinking that the therapist knew everything and they could see through me and they could tell what was wrong with me. And I want to demystify that with clients. And I am very similar to you that use a lot of self-disclosure and talk about appropriately and mindfully the things that I struggle with. And what my clients say is, it is so nice to know that I'm not alone, because it's really about, there's nothing wrong with us. We all have struggles. The struggles may change and lessen as we become more educated and empowered, but we're always going to be facing challenges. It's just the nature of being alive. And at least for this population, that is my experience has been, it's extremely validating and helpful. And that is part of what is critical to the healing process for the types of HSPs, at least, that come to work with me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote down the phrase, "You are not alone. You are not alone," in my notes for this interview. And just to have that, to know you're not alone in this, can be pretty amazing feeling and supportive. So yeah, and I don't want to say especially for men, but I don't know, men.
Right.
I feel like it's even rarer for men to be HSP. Is that in any of the research? I can't remember.
Well, actually, what Dr. Aaron says is it's 50-50 between men and women. Now, the research doesn't talk about people that are non-binary, transgender. So I've said in a number of interviews, without thinking about being sensitive to my gender bias language, that I really don't know what the numbers are for non-binary and transgender folks. But the stats say it's 50-50, which leads me to believe that there may be a number of men that are HSPs that have really just learned to bury that trait. I find for the women that I work with, they really struggle with their sensitivity. I think there's an overlay of wounding there, that when people are not comfortable with their sensitivity, there's usually some wounding. And I would imagine the same is true for men, but 50% of men, that's a lot of sensitivity in a culture that doesn't value tenderness, honesty, empathy, caring, gentleness. And what do we want in fathers? We want them to have all of those traits, so you can have it as a father, but don't have it as a man. That's not okay. What kind of a message is that?
Right. That is a therapeutic double bind, Patricia.
I think what I want to do is to move into our HS questions. I know we had a list of things that we were going to talk about. Let's see if that comes up in this. And if we need to circle back, we can do that. How does that sound for you?
Sure. That sounds great.
What are some of the challenges that you experience as a highly sensitive person?
Oh gosh, where do I begin? I guess just in general, out in society, being a man who is supposed to be tough and masculine and don't cry, don't be a baby, tighten your bootstraps, don't show emotion or that shows you're weak. That's been a challenge all kind of throughout my career as a human, starting from athletics to in the classroom to even the music industry, I think can be challenging too. Even though, artsy and creative people are supposed to be artsy and creative and sensitive, but there's still, the tough guys out there that have a perception of what you should be. So that's been a recent challenge, I guess, too.
And if you were able to talk to other men, what would you want to tell them about their sensitivity because of all the negative messaging? What is it that you'd want to tell them?
Well, you are not alone. I think that's the main one. And to really be comfortable sitting in the muck, that uncomfortable feeling of either being judged or made fun of or bullied, to just kind of sit there, not to sit there and take it, but to feel more comfortable with who you are internally. This intrinsic self-compassion, radical self-compassion. I think I referenced Kristen Neff and her radical self-compassion quite a bit in here too. Non-judgmental of yourself and really strengthening your ability to handle things. I guess that would be what I would say.
It's interesting. I was listening to sensitivity summits. By the time the listeners have heard this, it will have been over. But I was listening to Jacqueline Strickland, and I was interviewed by someone who talked about how do we develop resilience in our clients. And what I love that Jacqueline said is it's really about empowering HSPs to embrace their feelings. It feels like it's so counter because I think our culture wants to toughen us up, strengthen us up, be more resilient. And I think that when we can really, and it's really shifted how I talk about being an HSP, that I really think that when we can embrace how we're wired and how we show up, that creates room to be more okay with it. And I think kind of what you started out talking about is when we name things, this is how I'm wired. I feel things deeply. I'm touched by things. This means a lot to me. It creates acceptance. And then if we need to do some skill building around it because we choose to, we can. But I even am starting to be very mindful of the language that we use around the sensitivity, because there's that implication that how we show up in the world is not okay and we have to change it. If we want to change it, there's no problem with that. But that needs to come from the person and not from society or the therapist, that people need to toughen up. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, that having to come from inside of the person rather than an outside source, I think is absolutely crucial to any kind of change, or even self-soothing thoughts and thinking more positively about ourselves. It just has to come from within. And it's not easy. It takes 10,000 hours of practicing that to get the habit down.
Right.
So it's a constant work in progress for myself in my own practice as a meditator and as a therapist and as a husband, but it's just a work in progress. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that you were saying that without saying it, because Kristen Neff's work is all about self-compassion. And in the show notes at unapologeticallysensitive.com, you'd think after over 100 episodes, I'd figure out what the rest of that is so that you can get to this episode. It's not going to happen in this lifetime. So if you go to unapologeticallysensitive.com, click on the podcast tab, and then you can find the episode and click on that, and the show notes are there. But I will put notes in our references to everything we're talking about in the show notes.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So what are some of the corresponding strengths that you have as a highly sensitive person?
I can read a room like nobody's business.
Say a little bit more about that.
I notice body language, energies. I can't read minds, and I think I have that on my website. Like, I cannot read your mind, but I can sense by, what your eyes are doing, your how you're sitting, how you're standing, and that's been wonderful as a musician and as an artist to read the room from the stage. I don't do stand-up comedy, but if I did, that would be another superpower, because you can really feel the energy. And as a musician, you have to learn to do that too, or have that ability to, what song are you going to call next? What are we doing? And how are we going to present ourselves to the audience? As a therapist, I think that's a superpower helpful also, to catch the vibes of, if I'm working with a couple or an individual male. Hey, how you doing today? So you said you feel great, but I'm not getting that from what his face is looking like right now. So I think the ability to sense that really can open doors to more conversation, which leads to healing. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. What about, because I think that we often pick up on stuff, but if we don't check it out, it's very possible for us to add a meaning that may not be what's really going on. So how do you deal with that? I
get really curious. I try to ask more questions, and I will still claim to not be an expert, because I'm not. Hey, I'm sensing something. I'm not exactly sure what I'm sensing, but is everything okay on your end? I think that's kind of how I typically phrase stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's been really helpful. And sometimes I'll be way off, and my ability to say, "Yeah, you're right. That was dumb," and having a sense of humor about it and flexibility and resilience to let that go and to not think that I'm an expert. It's been so helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think when we're able to slow the process down, because I think it happens so frequently for us, and if we're not aware, we go into a situation, we read something, we make up a story about it, and then we move forward without even realizing that that's what we've done. And sometimes what we're picking up on is accurate, but the meaning may be very different. It's interesting. I've been just going through a lot of growth and challenges personally, and I've noticed with my husband, like he'll say things to me. He's a very kind and loving man. He's incredibly supportive. And he'll say something, and I internally think that he's coming from another angle. Unfortunately, I've been able to slow the process down and just get curious and ask him. And I'll tell you that the meaning that I attribute to what he's saying and where he's coming from are entirely different. And my husband is not the type of person to have a hidden agenda. That's just not how he operates. And I feel so grateful that, at least for this period, like I have not been in a reactive place where I add a meaning to it and then I go into reaction where that's not even where my gentle, loving husband is coming from. So I think the stuff can show up for us in so many different areas. And if we are able to get a reality check with curiosity, it's like, oh, okay. I could take off the armor.
Yeah. Oh, you touched on the slowing down piece. Oh my gosh. Just take a breath, take a moment. Let's calm the reactionary down. That's been such a massive shift in my life and in my office here too, because I think folks come in, I need to get help right now. This needs to change right now. And it's like, whoa, let's take a deep breath together. But yeah, slowing down is crazy helpful.
Yeah. I think too, because at least the people that come to me tend to be much more in their heads, kind of out of their feeling brain into their thinking brain. That's what they needed for survival. And so being able to take that pause and check in with our bodies and to see what's going on and to slowly reconnect in ways that feel safe, because, for me and the clients that seem to be drawn to me, we had to live from our neck up because it was not okay and it was not condoned to be, talk about any type of feeling state. Yeah.
Logic versus feeling.
Yeah. Can you think about something specific that someone said to you about being a highly sensitive person that felt hurtful or insensitive that you're willing to share?
Well, I can't cuss or use swear words or derogatories. So like name calling, like back in school, for whatever reason, maybe I was kind to an animal when other kids were trying to hurt it or something silly like that. Or it all comes down to misunderstanding and not knowing if somebody is not as sensitive as us, that can be tough. I don't know if I can name a specific thing, but I know that I've had my feelings hurt and it's lasted a few days before getting over it. Yeah.
If you were able to take a combination of the things that were told to you that were hurtful, what would you want to say? Like if we could create a person, what would you want to say back to that person today?
Hey, could you stop being an insensitive jerk? You don't know me. Not everybody's the same. We're all different. And you need to chill the bleep out. Notice I didn't swear there. Duly noted.
Nice job.
That was a challenge for me to go through that whole thing. But anyway,
I know.
Moving on.
I know.
Thank you.
You did an excellent job. What are some of your superpowers?
Recently, in my new phase of midlife, mid-40s, being able to read the room, I guess, too, with energies in the music scene. I don't know, being being an open door for men to come in and share stuff that they don't share with anyone else. I guess that can be considered a recent superpower that I'm holding on to and grateful for, and I'm super blessed to have.
Yeah, I think there's a huge need there. My guess is that men would really value from having a safe, non-judgmental place to show up, to learn about their traits and their sensitivity from someone else who really gets that, and not having that fear of being shamed and blamed and that toxic masculinity.
Yes.
Yeah.
What you said. All of what you said. Exactly.
What would you want to tell your younger self about being a highly sensitive person?
Dude, you're fine. You're okay. Man, that's got to be really hard, and this sucks. But yo, you got it. You're different. You're an artist. You're unique. You are so loving and kind, and you're going to be okay. And you will find your people. You will, they are around, and you'll feel supported. So, yeah.
That's great. What else is on your heart to talk about? I know that we had a list of things that we were going to talk about, and we sort of touched on them, but I'm just wondering what's important for you to share that we haven't touched on?
I think I want people to slow down and be patient with their partner who may be HSP, even though you don't understand what is happening, and educate yourself about it. I love sharing the book with my clients who then share it with their partner, and then they either read or listen to the literature together, the book, take the online test. But really just life moves so fast right now, and it just seems super chaotic with everything going on. If you can enjoy the simple pleasures of life with using mindfulness and get outside, get off your screen, that would be great. I am 1+ month into my social media hiatus right now. I feel that's why I don't know about all the things you're talking about, because I don't know. But it's been so refreshing to not know and to experience JOMO, the joy of missing out. Night. But it's certainly a challenge with all the technology and fast-paced modern life that we all live in right now too, with overstimulation and feeling overwhelmed with all of the things all of the time. I needed a break.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And if you have a partner, there's a movie called Sensitive, The Untold Story. Last time I saw, go ahead.
Has it come out yet? Is that with Alanis Morissette?
It is out. There's a new one called Sensitive in Love, and I'm not sure if it's out yet. I know last time you could get it on Amazon Prime, but if you just search up Sensitive, The Untold Story, that you can actually go to the website and rent the video from there. And that's a great thing if you're with a partner. I've started a local meetup. We meet on the first Saturday of every month. So if you're in San Diego, go to meetup.com and put in the highly sensitive person. I think it's also under unapologetically sensitive. I'll be running it at least through February. I'm not sure beyond that. But at 2 of the meetings, I can't tell you how many times questions come up about how to manage or navigate between having a partner that's an HSP and then a non-HSP. And I'm really seeing that there's a big need there. So by the time you hear this, it will have been over. But the next meetup, we're focusing on relationships. It's open every month. And I think we really do need to do education and information. And it's really about creating something that works for the whole family. It's not that the HSP is the one that everybody needs to adjust to, but how can the family work together to meet everybody's needs in a way that works for everybody? And I think the focus is often on the highly sensitive person as the identified patient or problem in the family. And it's really about creating something that works for everybody in the family.
Well, I am due for a trip to Southern California soon. So, I mean, I might meet you in person in San Diego.
I would love that.
Fun.
I would love that. Brian, tell us, I feel like I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, I just agree with that, with the statements you were just making about the partner, the non-HSP and the HSP partner together having those challenges in the family and in the relationship. And then one of the things I really appreciated about Elaine Aron's book was that she said, just because we're HSP doesn't mean that we can't do hard things or step up to the plate and show up and make things happen. I don't know. I think I'm misphrasing, but that part has really helped me also, knowing that I'm sensitive, but hey, I can also do this thing that I really don't want to do, but I got to do it.
Yeah, I think that when we can tease out where we got overstimulated, over-aroused, and we kind of paired it with a situation and thought, heck no, I'm not going back into that. And we understand what happened and how we can work with our traits to really expand what we're capable of doing. I think the world really can open up. And you started out by saying that, because I'm like you, I don't really like labels, but the label of being a highly sensitive person and understanding that this is how I'm wired felt so validating. And I really want people to be educated and empowered so that we go, yeah, this is what works. This is what doesn't. This is how I can manage this. I can do this in these circumstances. It really creates room for us to live bolder, brighter lives that don't have to be too much and without violating what we need as a highly sensitive person, that we really can do more than what we think we can when we're able to tease that stuff out and figure out how to navigate.
For sure. Yeah. Love it.
Brian, tell us what's going on, where people can find you, what you're offering, and give us your website also. Sure.
Well, I am in Burnsville, Minnesota, Twin Cities Metro in the United States. My website is brianzirngible.com. I'm not going to spell that out, but maybe, are you going to throw that on the info of the thing?
I would spell it though, because if I'm listening to a podcast, I won't go to the show notes.
Gotcha. So BrianZirngible.com. That's my website where you can find out a little bit who I am and what I do and my specialties. There's a video thing on there when I was interviewed on the news, or a local news station. And there's my contact information and my specialties of supporting highly sensitive men and creative artists and couples who want to save the marriage.
You're also a musician, so if people want to follow you musically, do you have links to your social media on your website?
No. So that's my therapy website, and I keep those separate. But if you want to check out my music, you can find me on iTunes or CD Baby or Facebook as well. Brian Zirngible Music.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah. Rock and roll.
Looks like we're about out of time. This has really been nice talking with you. Thanks for taking the time to be here today.
Such a pleasure, Patricia, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed this conversation with Brian, and it's always my intention to try and provide as much of a variety of the types of guests that I have on, and I was really grateful that Brian was willing to take the time and jump on with me. Because I'm recording these episodes so far in advance, it's really hard for me to have a sense of when the episode is going to air. My guess is around the time that you hear this, we're going to be gearing up again. I say we, it's just me. I'm going to be gearing up again to launch the next round of online groups for highly sensitive people. Actually, I'm calling it a course now because of the education. These courses have been so incredibly powerful and transformational, and if you have any questions about it, you can go to unapologeticallysensitive.com. There's a tab for the HSP course. I think it says HSP group at this point. I'm going to be doing some more information to really give you an idea of what it is that happens in these groups and why they're so transformational. But if it's something that you're interested in, it's much more affordable than if somebody wanted to work with me or work with a therapist on a weekly basis. It really is a way to get your needs met. And what I hear the people in the course say every single week is they leave feeling really restored and fulfilled. And one of the groups runs pretty late. I don't know that I'm going to do it again, but I'm tired. They're tired. But because you're in a group of people that really get who you are, you feel seen and heard. There's no pressure to be any other way than how we show up. And so much of the course is about really learning to lean into what goes on for us and trusting it and embracing it. I just don't think that very many highly sensitive people have the opportunity to be in an environment that is so nurturing and so supportive, and to learn skills, to be with other people, to learn from other people. Anyways, I could go on for days and days. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me at unapologeticallysensitive@gmail.com. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.